Okay, so Marta and Erzsébet, the word is yours.
Thanks a lot, Francesca, and let me also take the opportunity to thank you for all your hard work on making the Open Working Group meeting series possible. So thanks a lot for being our host here. And yeah, I think without further ado, we can just get started. Let me put on some slides, and then I just switch to the presentation mode. So once again, welcome everybody. It's really great to see working group members, even like founding members of the working group, and also new faces who are who we never seen before. Just to manage your expectations, I will give you a little bit of a summary of what we expect from our working group meeting today. So first of all, especially for the sake of the newcomers, we are going to introduce ourselves as a group and our work a little bit, and then we're gonna take the form of knowledge sharing in the forms of flash talks. So 4 working group members are going to give us little brief insights about their work, about our respective work on a field of research data management. And we are going to conclude the working group meeting with a free discussion, which can either be which can either be situated around the presentations, around the working groups, or just simply around generic discussion about priorities, needs, challenges, achievements, as research data management good practices are taking shape in the arts and humanities disciplines. This is an open working group meeting, which also means that it has to be open in a sense of participation. So feel free to use the chat. I see that you are already using you are already using the chat. Feel free to raise your hand as well, virtual or physical. And most importantly, enjoy the exchange. So yes, and before I start the introduction of the VG, let me also introduce myself and Marta as the chairs once again. My name is Erzsébet Tóth-Czifra. I'm working at DARIAH-EU as DARIAH's Open Science Officer, and Marta Błaszczyńska is the second chair, other chair of the working group. She's working at the Polish Academy of Sciences, and you will gain insights on her work as well, like on the national context. So, but apart from Marta and me, who we are, so I think for all of you, it should be pretty obvious that when it comes to sharing and the reuse of scholarly resources, then it involves many different parties and stakeholders and institutions. And we were trying to reflect this in the composition of the working group. So most importantly, we wanted to bring together researchers from around DARIAH, arts and humanities scholars whom we know that they are already doing good work in their own scholarly practices when it comes to research data, or who are just simply interested in research data management good practices. To be honest, it's not always an easy thing to attract researchers along the generic keywords of research data management, but we are quite optimistic in that making these practices very concrete changes the situation for the better. So we are really proud actually that we have scholars on board from many diverse disciplines in arts and humanities. We have data support professionals who work under very diverse geographical and institutional settings, but usually the common trait is that they are working with arts and in the arts and humanities domain. some of these professions are not very new, but some others are quite recent. Data stewards, open science officers. In Germany, we usually call them subject librarians. So they are running under very diverse titles and labels as well. But the working group aims to be a knowledge hub for them as well, along the arts and humanities dimension. We also know that cultural heritage professionals play a super important role in the majority of data workflows in the arts and humanities. So it was important for us to engage them as well. And like archivists, librarians, people working at museums, cultural heritage institutions. I think Péter's presentation will also give us insights in this respect. But it's also important to highlight that many of us are actually combining these different roles and comes with a combination. So we started our work together officially in the middle of the lockdown, in the middle of the beginning of the lockdown in 2020, April. And we have currently 46 members, which I find honestly incredible. You can take a look at the list of the members in the link. Of course, we are going to show the presentation to you in the chat, so you will be able to click all the links. So here are some of the challenges that we are tackling together. We came together because on the one hand, I think when we are talking about DARIAH, then data sharing, data publication, data standardization practices had been very dear to many of the communities around DARIAH from the beginning. But on the other hand, we also see that there is a strong policy drive across Europe. Marta, you raised your hand.
Sorry for interrupting you, but we have some mysterious rectangle that appeared and covers the text a little bit.
A rectangle?
I don't know, you probably don't see it, but we see it with the screen sharing, and we could see the content before, but
I think the problem, I think it's the interface of Zoom that's interfering. So maybe, I don't know if you're shaving the whole screen or the window, because it really is the form of the Zoom interface. So
interesting.
You can select either the whole screen or the window. I don't know which one you have now.
Yeah, I'm sharing the whole screen, and I was also using double screens, so that might have an issue.
But now we see it very well, thanks.
Okay, then it was Zoom plus double screens. I know that my screen settings can sometimes drive crazy, the interface, so that's about interoperability and stuff. Oh, Marta, thanks for signaling it. That was really funny, the mysterious rectangle. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's fine for me at least.
Good. Thanks, and let me know if it happens to reappear or anything like that. Speaking of challenges, so long story short, research data had been dear to DARIAH from the beginning, but we also saw a strong and even stronger policy drive, the advent of open and fair data mandates, and we realized that, okay, it's important, like research data management is getting important also as condition of funding, and we really need to make sure that these conditions are equally feasible to all the disciplines in the arts and humanities. So we have to concentrate our efforts a little bit more systematically to have the compliance to all arts and humanities scholars, not only digital humanists. We also saw that this very generic discipline agnostic approaches to research data management are not always helpful in research data in humanities settings. So in many cases, it starts from, so you are sitting in a lab, you are generating your data, oh, well, no. So we wanted to bring together a diversity of experiences here from many sectors, from a range of disciplines, amplify good practices along the arts and humanities domain specificities. There are still many flavors of this to explore. For instance, we are trying to harmonize thinking along data types that make sense when it comes to research data management, or thinking along disciplinary traditions, because sometimes it's more convergent, sometimes it's more divergent. It's an interesting phenomenon to observe, but I will tell you more about this later. Yeah, and as I told you, like the original idea was to work together mainly for researchers, disciplinary champions, but then very soon we also saw that there is a huge need also from across data support professionals working in humanities domains across Europe to come together and share experiences. So we aim to serve them as well. Here is how these considerations are mapped very concretely into our task forces. So this chart gives you a little bit of insights of concretely what we are doing. So we have a Zotero library in which that I've honestly forgot to clean up. I wanted to clean it up a little bit before the VG meeting, so my bad. But it's open, so you can check it out, you can contribute, you can do a bit of a data cleaning as well. And so this is kind of a shared library. We also wanted to explore very concrete ways in which data publication is happening in the humanities, in which data sharing, in which data reuse is happening in the humanities. So to work together with the active scholar members of the working group, whom we call disciplinary champions, we are working on a research data workflow series in which they take one concrete research project and they capture this project in terms of a data workflow along a research data lifecycle, which results in a rich documentation of the workflow step by step towards the sense of reproducibility. But they also share sometimes very personal reflections on these workflows. What worked well, what didn't really, what was the original idea, what could have been done differently. So these are a workflow series that we are working on currently, more on that later again. As I told you, brokering with cultural heritage institutions and professionals is also important for us. So we have sometimes we organize invited talks around the topic, and if you click on the link datacharter.hypothesis.org, you can also find some of DARIAH's efforts there to increase the trust between the cultural heritage sector and arts and humanities research. As I already mentioned, we also try to speed up and facilitate knowledge sharing between data support professionals. For instance, we are collecting reference data management plans in our Zotero library, share experiences along that line as well. And we are also try to explore synergies with other DARIAH working groups as well. More on that later. Yeah, Marta, I give the word to you.
Thanks, Erzsébet, and hello, everyone, again. So Erzsébet told you a bit about how our work is divided in terms of content, what we do exactly, the task forces. And I just wanted to share with you a few ways in which we work together. So how we communicate, how we meet, etc. So you can see that in terms of communication channels, we have a mailing list that everyone is welcome to use to inform other members about any news, developments, something to discuss. We have our Twitter account, and the handle has already been shared in the chat by Erzsébet. And all those links are also there in the presentation later on. So you're welcome to later on take a look around and click. We have a shared drive where we store all the documentation, including those rolling minutes from the meetings, which, well, right now are quite impressive because we cover all the discussions, we cover the news. There's a Zotero collection that Erzsébet mentioned already, and that is open to the members to play around with, to add different materials and to co-create with us. And in terms of meetings, we try to meet approximately bi-monthly. Of course, this varies during the holidays. Sometimes there's a longer break. If there's intensive work, like recently, we're meeting a bit more often. And each meeting, they vary in terms of what we do. So like you can see, sometimes there are thematic meetings, sometimes we discuss some current issues, but one feature which we were inspired to include by our Dutch colleagues is the news and newsworthy section at the beginning of each meeting. And we found it to be quite a hit with everyone because it gives the opportunity to share the news on events, on papers, on initiatives, workshops that have happened or will happen very soon. And often they are kind of set up in the institutional or national context. So we wouldn't necessarily know about them if it wasn't for our VG members who share them with us. So it's really a great platform to kind of talk to each other and find out what everyone is doing at that given point in time.
Yes. We're going to finish this presentation soon, and looking at the time. And but to finish, we also wanted to give you a couple of pointers about some of our outputs that are openly available for you. First of all, speaking of exploring synergies with other DARIAH working groups for the DARIAH annual event 2020, we prepared a little synergy session with the Geo-Humanities working group to discuss specificities of Geo-Humanities data. And it was a very good example of how productive it can be knowledge sharing around data types, because if you VG members remember, there were linguists in the room, there were historians in the room, there were archivists in the room, all working along the same data type and brought their own challenges and own solutions. So you can watch the recording and you can also check out the abstract of the collaboration, and hopefully it will not stop at this point. Another kind of pointer that you can follow up with if you are interested, in February this year, with the Social Sciences and Humanities Open Cloud project, we did a train-the-trainer research data management bootcamp, specifically targeting this new data support professional roles, data stewards, open science officers, and the like. We picked out the 3 of the hottest topics around RDM in the humanities. It was cost estimation, it was GDPR and social media data, and brokering with third-party data providers such as culture-heritage institutions. These were the three topics. And you can see the documentation, the recordings, the slides, and the like in the links here. And the already mentioned research data workflows to finish with. So here again, the idea was that to make data sharing, fair data practices as concrete, as reproducible as possible from real life accounts. And here you can see the first episode published that I did together with our colleague, Naomi Chuan, who is a linguist currently a postdoc at the University of Leipzig. You can take a look. Another episodes or volumes of this research. I mean, Naomi's was around creating and analyzing parliamentary corpora, but many people who are, it could be relevant for many of you who are working with DEI annotations, because her success story was basically about how people from other disciplines reused her DEI annotation framework and what kind of weight it played in her career advancement as well. So one of the messages that we wanted to shout out loud with Naomi is that it's possible to share your data openly and survive it. There are other episodes are in the making that Marta is going to briefly mention to you soon. Another future plan that we probably, that we definitely have in mind is to publish these data workflows in a little bit more data-saving manner. Instead of just having them on a PDF, we wanted to publish it as a structured data or a mini knowledge graph and add it to the SSH Open Marketplace as a workflow item. Okay, Marta, I'm giving you the word again too.
Yes, so just not to talk too much, you can see the examples of the disciplines that will be represented in the following data workflows, and they're very much in the making. I mean, the ones that are listed here, we've already conducted the interviews with our colleagues. We've already got the text, started creating them into the structure that we have for workflows, and they're now being checked. We go back and forth with the colleagues who gave the interviews just to make sure that all the materials are there, so they will be with us pretty soon. Another idea that we have, and we've already also started preparing our guest talks. Of course, we always welcome our VG members to give talks, and this happens very regularly. But we're also thinking about inviting some external experts who will again reflect the diverse perspectives on RDM. That's one of our main aims, and meet the needs of different members and their interests. And I mentioned before that we've been working intensively recently in the recent weeks, and this is because we are applying for the DARIAH working group funding. This is also now in the making as the deadline has been slightly moved, so we still have a couple of days, and I will not give too much, just to keep the surprise about this application. We can go to the next slide, I think.
Yes, this is just a sign just to show you signs of alignment. That of course, research data management is a loaded space, especially on the European level. So it's super important for us to make sure that we are not reinventing the wheel, but instead we align our operations along that of our allies. I could have added much more logos and initiatives to this slide, but take it as an arbitrary selection. And as Marta already put it forward, here you can find all the contact info and links to our resources. And I think, okay, the time is running, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen with you. You will get the link to the Google Slides. But before we start the flash talks of Marta and Femmy and Péter, maybe we can just stop for 5 minutes to check whether any of you have any questions or comments to the introduction of the WG so far. Don't be shy. Don't be shy, but be time saving. Good, good, good. So, Marta, what do you think? Because yeah, like you're the next speaker. Yeah, let's follow that order.
Sure thing. And you see the full screen, right?
Yes, yes.
No rectangles. Well, okay, so what I wanted to briefly talk to you about today, and this is a huge undertaking. So again, this will be a flash talk. feel welcome to ask me questions later, is a knowledge and cultural data exchange platform that is being built currently by the DARIAH community in Poland during, well, as part of a project that I will briefly present to you. And as you can see on this first slide, the team that has been working on, well, on the research of the users that I would like to focus on, it is larger than me, of course, and I can see that Marta Świetlik is present today, so very happy to see that, and you're very welcome to also participate in the discussion. And just to tell you what the structure of this presentation will be, I'll start with presenting the project that the platform will be part of, but it's a much larger infrastructure that is being created. Then I will show you how we've been focusing on the community in the work towards the platform so far, and share some initial conclusions that we have about the needs of the arts and humanities community in Poland. So as you can see here, there is a huge project going on in Poland right now. It's the project is called DARIAH-PL, and the infrastructure that is being built is called DARIAH Lab. And the project gathers 16 members of the consortium. It includes 15 members of the DARIAH-PL community, and also as an extra Poznań University of Technology. And it is being coordinated by the Poznań Supercomputing and Networking Center. And the infrastructure that is being made, the technical infrastructure, the work is being carried out in 5 laboratories. And just to give you an idea of how large this project is, the platform that I'll focus on is just part of laboratory number 3, but it's not all of the lab 3 work, it's just part of it. It's a very large project, the biggest of this kind that has ever been done in Poland. And you can see the 3 key areas in terms of data that we're focusing on, and I put cultural data in bold because that's the focus of today's presentation. And just about this platform, a few words about the platform. So there is a platform for exchange that has been planned as part of this DARIAH-PL project. And there was not that much structure given to this plan. So there was an idea, there was a vision that there should be a, let's say, meeting point for the community. But we've been quite free to work towards meeting the needs. So there's not a very strict description that we have to follow, which allowed us to develop a very community-oriented workflow, user-oriented workflow, in which we analyzed some of the existing portals and platforms, Polish, but not only, and not necessarily about digital humanities, also about cultural heritage, other disciplines, and directed at scholars, directed at other groups. We've had at IBL PAN internal meetings every week, which were focused on conceptual work, so a lot of discussions going on, and also project meetings with other partners every 2 weeks. Esoteric Library has been created, where we've been putting together some of the inspirations for the platform, some of the good examples of what's been going on in terms of content, but also functionalities. And we've presented some early conclusions to the partners, but also at the same time started researching user needs, which I will share with you in just a minute. So as you can see, it was very community oriented. We were trying to look at what's already out there, what is working, what is not, and also ask people how they're working and talk to researchers themselves. And here are some examples that I will not go into detail, but of the existing portals, web pages, examples that we have analyzed in terms of what is there, how the data is presented, how the community is built, whether there are discussions there, etc. And moving on to the interviews, so what I wanted to focus on, we tried to answer this question: if there is a need to create this kind of portal web page that would engage the digital humanities community and cultural heritage researchers in knowledge and data exchange in the Polish context, and what functions should it perform? What is needed? Who did we talk to? So we did semi-structured interviews, and we've had 14 interviews so far with researchers. This includes 2 pilot studies, and they were arts and humanities researchers, but as you can see, of many disciplines. There are 12 disciplines represented, and many wore more than one hat. So many were representatives of a couple of different disciplines. They had different research interests that they combined in their work. The biggest group was made up of PhD candidates, so there were 7. But as we all know, PhD candidates, they are a very diverse group. So among those, we had these who just started their scholarly research, and there were very experienced PhD candidates who really just needed to defend their thesis, or they were on the finishing path to become a doctor. And because the consortium is made up of representatives of Polish Academy of Sciences, of different institutes and of universities, both of those groups were represented in the group that we talked to. And we wanted to ask them how they are using different web pages today, what is their workflow, how they are discussing their work with the colleagues, if there are any places where they get inspirations, where they find out about different projects, where they find out about different data sets, where they find out about tools, how they learn. And we did manage to get some initial conclusions about the needs of the Polish community. And this is a balancing out act a little bit, what I'm going to do here, because we're very much still in the progress with our work. So I will not go into too much detail, just not to ruin the surprise, let's say, and maybe next time I can tell you a bit more. But again, in the context of the flash talk, just some highlights of what we found. So we found that there are 3 personas made, based on the group that we interviewed, 3 personas of Polish arts and humanities researchers. And if you are familiar with user research, you might know this word persona, which means a type of person. So we grouped those people, those 14 people that we talked to, into these 3 kind of archetypes, you might say. One of them is the lonely wolf. So this is the type of researcher who doesn't get involved so much in discussions online, for example. They are very focused. They are usually highly specialized, and they know what they are looking for. So they use the internet as a kind of library. So they really want to search for something, and they usually find the answers to their questions. The second type is the extrovert. So this is the type of researcher who enjoys taking part in knowledge exchange in communities. They often use social media, such as private companies, Facebook groups, for example, with other experts, and ask questions, get involved in the discussions. And they are quite open to sharing. They might be using some open repositories where they put their work very quickly on. They would like to get feedback. Very open type, as the name suggests. And then there is the group member, which is kind of in between, and it often is linked to the lack of time rather than the lack of initiative. So this type of researcher is also open to sharing, but it's mainly in the context of groups that they know, that they trust, and that they feel they can rely on. So we feel that the needs of those 3 groups, which in terms of communicating with others, but also in terms of sharing and in searching, they're quite different. They should be kind of met by this platform. So this is one of the challenges that we have. And also in terms of the main activities that are being undertaken by the community. One of them is sharing. So this is with other researchers, but also with the society. There is searching, exploring, browsing. So it's a very big one. So searching for projects that exist, searching for information about tools, or also just written content, such as articles. That's probably the largest one. There is communication. And this goes on different levels because researchers communicate with specific persons, but also with the community. Like I mentioned, just putting a question out there and waiting for an answer. For example, in terms of art historians, it could be asking for help with dating a certain artifact. And also with colleagues, so with people that they know in real life. And a very big part was also teaching and learning, and teaching especially by the university professionals who might be using a lot of tools, a lot of portals to create classes for their students. And in terms of functions of the platform, so just a couple of highlights. One of them is something that we also expected, and this also showed through the interviews, is that the information, and this might be information about projects, about scholarly institutions, also data, different repositories where you can find cultural data, is very much dispersed among different platforms, and Polish researchers often use also platforms that are international, but also different websites from Polish institutions. And there is a need to aggregate it because there is just often too much, and it's a time constraint that comes into play. Contents should be personalized because there are different types of needs. As I mentioned, the extrovert type of researcher might be open to exploring and even finding information from different disciplines. Whereas the lonely wolf, as we called the other type, will be more specialized and will want to know what is going on in his or her specific discipline mainly, maybe not only, but will want to find out highly specialized content, not the general information about digital humanities as a whole. And community building and consolidating should be at the heart of the project to allow for, first of all, communication, but also this knowledge and data exchange. So what we would like to do, hopefully this is the plan, is spend the last year of the project working on building this community, making the platform a place that is attractive for the researchers to come and to stay, and not only to browse through, but also to hopefully, if they feel the need and if they do it already, to discuss the topics, comment on each other's work, and to form this community that right now is dispersed among the different places. Okay, thank you very much. These were just a few highlights. I mean, there's been a lot of work going on, so I'll be happy to answer any questions or tell you about it even after the meeting if you would like to see any more materials. But I think it's time for me to finish now. Thanks.
Thanks really a lot, Marta. Super interesting, and people showing already interest to the examples that that you skipped. In the I copied the URLs out from your presentation. Super interesting. So people, we still have a bit of a time, contrary to our bedtime management, to have your questions if you have any or comments. Okay, then I will take the courtesy and abuse my chairing role to ask two very short questions. The first one, you know what I'm going to ask, like whether the interviews are going to be published somewhere? And if so, whether, I guess they're written in Polish, right?
Yes, the interviews were in Polish, so it's a little bit tricky because we have not been making transcripts from the interviews. What we've done is, in terms of methodology, maybe I should have mentioned, but there was no time. We recorded the interviews and the interviewers. So the person conducting the interview was one of the persons making notes. And then it was being also observed by another colleague. So there were two people who were kind of putting the notes in a structured form, but we do not have, we do not have transcripts, unfortunately. And this was linked to the time constraint because we had about a month to conduct the interviews and to present the initial reflections to our colleagues who will take care of the technical side. So what we'll probably do is anonymize some of the workflow because we've worked on a Miro board with this user research methodology, thinking about different needs and putting some thoughts together in terms of some paper notes that were put on the Miro board. So we will probably consider publishing those. As a kind of, it's not the same, of course, but it gives you the idea of what the workflow looked like for finding these needs.
Good. Okay. I think we can of course discuss it further at the end of the meeting, but I think it's time to give the floor to our second perspective for today, and it's still we are still staying on the ground of research data support, and I'm really proud to have Femmy Admiraal as a member of the working group. So Femmy, please come to the stage and share brief insights about your work.
Thank you, Erzsébet. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here today and be able to present a bit about my work at DANS. DARIAH is a pretty familiar crowd to me, and I guess some of you might recognize my name as well because I've been involved in the Chief Integration Office for quite a few years. But recently, around April, I got a sort of a new role within DANS. And that means that I will be spending less time in the Chief Integration Office role and more time in my Data Station Manager's role. And that's also the hat that I'm wearing today. So I work at DANS, that stands for Data Archiving and Network Services. We're based in the Netherlands, in The Hague, usually in this building behind me, now at home, of course. And I'll be starting with a bit of an introduction about DANS, and then I'll focus on my role as a data station manager for the humanities. And I'll briefly come back to what that means for DARIAH, or how DARIAH and Darians could benefit from me, basically, or from DANS, our services. So let me start with the DANS introduction. Yes, it's working. Great. So DANS was founded in 2005. Erzsébet, just so you know, I see that there are some chat messages. If it's something related to what I say and I have to answer directly, please interrupt me, because otherwise I'll leave the chat closed.
You can count on me on that, Femmy. Yes.
Great, thanks. So DANS was founded in 2005. We're an institute of the the Royal Academies of Arts and Sciences, the KNAW, and the National Science Council. Since the beginning of the foundation, it was actually based on previous archives and projects, initiatives, etc. But DANS as such was founded in 2005. And since its foundation, our mission has always been to promote and provide access to digital research resources. At the moment, actually, I wrote in my presentation, nearly 190,000 data sets in our archive. I checked the website this morning, we're over 190,000, so it really goes quickly. And I think we have about 60 employees all dedicated to research data management in the repository. So we're really within the Netherlands, definitely one of the major repositories, and I think we can safely say that within Europe, we're also one of the bigger partners. A few words on what we focus on. Our focus on FAIR, that's the name of our program, our 5-year program. And that 5-year program is based on 3 pillars. Those 3 pillars are very much tailored to the national landscape, but they have, of course, also an influence and a consequence for the bigger international work that we do. So the first is a center of expertise. Secondly, we're a repository, and third, we try to do as much collaboration as we can. I will address each of these points. Sorry, it's raining here. It's hailing, actually. You might hear that. Nothing I can do about it. So I'll address each of these pillars briefly, but I'll concentrate on the repository part because that's where my role as a data station manager lies. So first of all, the National Center of Expertise. We have a dedicated team of around 20 research data management experts. They often gain their experience in large European projects, and we try to focus on the knowledge transfer to the national level. So that's the level of the data support professionals. Erzsébet also already mentioned that they come in different shapes and flavors and names. In Holland, very often the university libraries have a department where data stewards are based, but sometimes they're also tied to the faculty. So also here the picture is a bit varies widely from institution to institution. We also have a business intelligence unit, and that's a sort of a research unit that keeps an eye on trends and the market and what other parties do, so that we can also inform our decisions based on current developments in the wider world, so to speak. So the business intelligence unit is really our eyes and ears in the world. Now let me talk about the repository. We're actually in the middle of a major overhaul at DANS. So we used to have the easy repository. That might sound familiar to you. That was a general repository. So it was for all disciplines. We have a strong tradition in archaeology, but our easy repository really was a one-size-fits-all. Well, we realized that doesn't always work. In addition, we had some new thoughts about the technology that we wanted to use. So we are now restructuring our repository, and it's all based on Dataverse. And it's structured in a way that, as you can see in the blue here, so we have 4 domain-specific data stations, one for archaeology, one for social sciences and humanities, one for life and medical science, and one for nature and technical sciences. The division does not always represent a strict boundary. Well, that's always difficult in scientific disciplines, I suppose. But one reason, for example, why archaeology is a separate data station and not part of the arts and humanities, or social sciences and humanities, I should say, is that we have a large collection and a long history of working with archaeology and archaeological partners in the Netherlands. So a substantial part of our current collection is an archaeology collection, and we want to keep those strong ties to the community alive, of course. So that's why it's a separate data station and not part of the social sciences and humanities. In addition to the data stations, we also have 2 services. That's the Dataverse NL service. It's always a bit confusing, but this Dataverse NL, we run that as a service, but it's basically a service to institutions who run their own instance of Dataverse. So the university, for example, can have their own Dataverse instance and use that as a repository, and DANS runs the service level on top of those instances. And the second service is the Data Vault, and there we offer secure and reliable long-term preservation, also in the data stations, of course, but the Vault has a somewhat different function where that has a technological explanation. I won't go into detail at this point. So let me focus on the data station, social sciences and humanities. As I said, it does not include archaeology, but we do have 2 dedicated data station managers. It's my colleague, Ricarda Braukman, for the social sciences. Some of you might know her, and me for the humanities. We both have a background also as a researcher, we both have a PhD, she in social sciences and I in linguistics. So we have a strong background in the research environment, and also a solid knowledge of the practices, the domain-specific practices in those fields. And with that experience, we try to tailor our services to those specific domain-specific needs of the communities. And I think our background as researchers really helps us in thinking along with the needs and the wishes from the communities. One focus that we have in addition to the repository is that we also try to integrate our services into the national architecture. So, for example, ideally, we would like to be connected to all kinds of other services that researchers use.
Is it just my connection, or?
No, we lost Femmy.
We lost Femmy, okay. It's somehow reassuring that it's not only happening to me all the time, you know. So hopefully Femmy is going to come back.
Hope she is not wiped out by the hail and thunderstorm.
Yeah, there was a heavy storm, so it well might be the case. Yes, almost totally exceptionally. In Berlin, the sun is shining, so I'm not surprised that other Berlin colleagues are not present, because you know the rule: if the sun is out, if it's not a frequent thing to happen, then you should just drop everything. And so Ulrike, I appreciate even more so that you are attending. Yeah. So what should we do, Marta? Because the time is running. Should we wait for Femmy a little bit more to come back, or should we move on to Peter's presentation? What do you think?
Let's give it half a minute if Femmy doesn't
I
come.
mean, it's my heart is breaking for Femmy, and I think we're all looking forward to her input very much. But
yes, she's coming.
She's coming. Good.
I have her.
Good.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I don't know what happened. My screen started to go weird, and then I don't know, I left the meeting somehow. Let me get my presentation back up.
Sure thing.
I don't know at what point you lost me or I lost you.
I think you just finished the second point, and you were about to talk about the integration.
Right, the integration in the national architecture. Perfect. Okay, I'll pick it up from there. Once again, I'm sorry for this issue. So we, for example, ideally, we would like to be connected to other architectural components that researchers use. So, for example, VREs in which they are working, ideally, they would be able to get a data set from DANS into their VRE, work on it with their analysis tools, whatever they want to do, and then hit the button and bring it back to DANS for long-term preservation. So that's something an area that we're working on as well from a domain-specific point of view. So to give a few concrete examples, what I do on a daily basis. I'm involved in several projects that where DANS provides expertise on the DMP planning. So Polyphonia might ring a bell to some of you. It's a really large Horizon 2020 funded project and consortia, 14-month project, 10 pilots. It's quite a complex one because those pilots all work with different kinds of data, different kinds of resources. So I think we have a list of already 60 resources for which we have something to say in the DMP plan. So that's a complex one. A much smaller one is Tales from the Drug Closet that was recently awarded, and that's a very small project, but it's really interesting because there people are asked to share personal stories, personal experiences with drug use. So that has a strong, data sensitivity component to it. That's also a very interesting case for me to find out how we can best do that. An example of how we try to make our services as domain specific. Apart from DARIAH, I also have a DARIAH hat. And with my DARIAH hat on, I'm the Chief Data Officer since October or so for DARIAH. And there we also are looking to collaborate as much as possible on domain specific services. So for example, in linguistics, the CMDI metadata scheme is used a lot, and we are looking at how we can map those to the data first metadata schemes that we are using, and make provisions so that the CMDI metadata can also be imported and exported from our repository. And an example of integration into the national architecture is this project, Collaborative Oral History Research Environment. That's again a smaller project, and it's a pilot project really, and we're looking at how oral history interviews can be indeed analyzed in a secure environment, and what is needed to make this pipeline happening to be automatically archived, not automatically, but with a click on a button archived at DANS. So that's also something that's going on at the moment. In short, this is the national context, so it might have some unfamiliar terms to you, but we have these national service providers with whom we collaborate on this infrastructural component, so making a national infrastructure that serves the community, the researcher, as best as possible. And then we have these domain-specific service providers that we're connected to, that we inform mutually, and that we try to have a common road forward, so to say. And those, of course, have their international counterparts. So Odyssey is strongly tied to CESTA, DARIAH is strongly tied to Clarin and DARIAH. So that's how we also extend to the European level. That brings me to my final slide. What's in it for you? What's in it for DARIAH or Darians? It really depends on what your role is. So if you are a researcher, we can always help you to provide sustainable access to your research data. If you have, it depends on how you're embedded in on the national level, if there are already good provisions or not. We obviously have a big Dutch collection, but we're open to anyone. So if you're interested, you can also always contact us. We also do support in data management planning, as I mentioned in the examples that we do, so as well for large projects as for very small projects. If you're a data support professional, keep an eye on our events. We have a lot of events that focus on knowledge transfer of international projects to the national context, but also on an international level. So that's an interesting thing. And we're also happy to hear from you and collaborate on domain-specific wishes and needs, because that's exactly what we want. We want to make the best provisions for the specific domains. And on an infrastructural or institutional level, we try to exchange our expertise in networks such as these. So the DARIAH working groups, for example, is a very nice example of a network that connects so many people from different countries. And we always hear about new collaborations, new initiatives, events, etc. So that's a very nice collaboration. And if you're an institution and looking for long-term preservation solutions, we can also be in touch and collaborate. We have some experiences, or we're setting up a sort of archive in a box solution for smaller institutions that don't really have their own repository, but can use a sort of prefab Dataverse instance to create a repository. And also in Odyssey, we're strongly connected to the whole Odyssey portal setup. So that's ways in which we also like to collaborate with DARIAH and the bigger infrastructures and international institutions. So that's all from my side. I hope I kept a bit in time. I don't know, with a little break in between.
We are, thanks a lot, Femmy. We are terrible in time, but Marta and I are making adjustments in our agenda. So
I just wanted to say, if there's no time for questions now, or I can take questions, it's fine with me. You can also feel free to contact me in any of these via any of these ways on the screen, and I'll get back to your questions later.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So we decided to have Péter's presentation as the last one, because we want to, we don't really like settings in which presenters are talking and that's it. So we decided to go a little bit more relaxed. It's a working group meeting after all, not a conference, luckily. I think we have, Femmy, we have time to address the one question in the chat from Anne, asking whether your support also open. I think it's a very important one. And
yeah.
Is your support also open to foreign researchers or only Dutch researchers and institutions?
No, basically it's open to anyone, and it depends a bit on what kind of support you're talking about. I mean, for example, Polyphonia is this European large-scale project, and we're working with. There's 2 Dutch partners in it as well, but most of the partners are not Dutch. Our knowledge transfer events are basically all in English and open to anyone. Our repository service is also open to researchers from anywhere. One condition that we have is that the metadata should be in English, so other languages are not accepted for the metadata. Then it depends a bit on how useful it is, and what kind of descriptions we would like to see to be able to provide reuse of the data. We need some context, so that's at least the metadata should be in English, but otherwise we're open to anyone.
Good, thanks a lot. Okay, if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to use the chat. It's also time saving. And if we have a bit of a time at the end, we can come back to Femmy. But now we are taking an even further step in the depths of even data science, I would say, as it makes sense in an arts and humanities domain. So let me introduce Péter Király, who is going to talk about measuring metadata quality of library catalogues. Péter, the floor is yours.
Thanks. So I will talk about my research. So I have several hats, at least 2. One is that I'm on daily basis, I'm developer and site administrator of our own Dataverse instance in Göttingen. Actually, we collaborate with DANS in multiple projects. So greetings for DANS colleagues working with Dataverse. But I will talk now about a research project, how to measure metadata quality of library catalogs. So the quality is a multifaceted and very opinionated term. So it is not clear what we call quality and why we call good quality and bad quality. We have some metrics. Some metrics are very sensitive metrics. I mean that it means different for you and for me. So measuring things like that is a kind of eternal circle. So we have a catalog, then we measure it, and the third step is to evaluate with expert, and then they can decide what to improve and how to improve, and then measure again, and then evaluate with experts again, and so forth. I've created a tool called, or tool set, because it's not a single tool, called QA catalog. And now this circle is implemented on a weekly basis in two libraries, in the University Library of Ghent, Belgium, and in the British Library. This tool set is a specification of a more general tool set. This concentrates only on MARC. MARC is a library standard. This is not the only one, but mainly the mostly used worldwide. The MARC records are quite cryptic, so they are kind of language independent. So the individual data elements are denoted by numbers and letters, meaning absolutely nothing. But there's a description where you can find the meanings. The description is not part of the records, and it's not like the linked open data. Then when the property contains usually a URL, and at the end of the URL you can read what is the intention of it. The intention here is available in paper, or at least in HTML. So my tool brings together these two things: the structure, this cryptic denotation, and the meaning. Of course, the meaning might be very vague. So a title might be anything. A date should be a date, and there are some even more strict values where the range of the values should be a strict term list, like A, B, or C, and of course this has a meaning. So not only the core standard exists. Almost every library creates their own additions to the standard. So there is a Library of Congress maintained MARC, but the British Library has own set of fields which are not available in the core, and many other libraries like the Finnish National Library, German National Library, Czech National Library, and so forth. Even university libraries create their own additions which are useful. Some publish their definitions, some are not. So the tool itself, I just show you some examples what the tool used. First one is the completeness. So it's a very simple matrix. It's just measuring what data elements are available, what are not available, what data elements are meaningful, and what data elements might be meaningful, but we don't know the meaning because it might be a local definition and without a publication of the definition. So in Mark, there are several group of data elements, like we have control fields, numbers and code, main entry, and so forth. We display how many instances are available, how many records are available, what is the percentage, and we can go deeper. So this group, title group, covers a number of so-called fields, and each fields might have indicators and subfields. We can check the individual values. So let's say we have seen this, that there are abbreviated titles. We can check what are these titles, and we can also search for the records having these titles. The second one is more deeper, and maybe that's the most objective part of the metrics. The issues against the standards or this local definition of fields. We can see here that we have a number of records without any issues, and some records which has issues. And because we don't know exactly whether the issue, so if the issue really breaks some rules which are defined, then it's clear. But sometimes we don't know the rules. So that's why we provide two kinds of bars here. The second one contains only the issues we know positively that it's an issue, breaks some rules. The issue might happen on different parts of the mark records, like on the record level, control field, data field, and so forth. With a click, we can check what is the individual issue. We see here that it is a particular part of the records. I don't go into details about the denotations of mark records. We can get a link to the definition. So here we can check why it is an error, and what would be the acceptable values here. We can also go to the records, and we can download the record identifiers, and this list can be used by the catalogers to get to check the catalogs. Okay, some more tabs I will show you, like the subjects. So in these catalogs, this is the university catalog of Ghent. Roughly the half of the cataloged item has some classifications. Classifications also available in multiple places. There are many different kinds of classifications, like geographic classification, subject category code, government document classification number, and so forth. And for each, we can check what kind of additional metadata are available. Like here we can see that it's we have an area code, and less record has a sub area code, and we can check what are these codes. Yeah, this is a kind of a typical, and it's another level of quality assessment, that lots of the subjects are also encoded, but it's not part of the mark standard. And some of these classification schemes are available as open data, so we can resolve what 3201 means, but most of the times it's secret. The same analyzes with the authority name. So these two kinds of conceptual terms in the catalog. We have the rough description, what is the title of the book, who are the authors, and so forth, and the conceptual metadata bounds some context around this. So one context is the subjects, which puts into the word of knowledge, kind of, and the other is the names, which puts into a network of persons and organizations. So here it is, we can see here that 83% of the record has some names, and only less than 20% doesn't have. And there are some others, like different weighting schemes for the completeness. So some fields in some contexts are more important than in others. I just show you two more. This is a kind of history of cataloging. So on one axis, we can see when the book was published. On the other axis, we can see when the book was cataloged. And we can see here in the middle of the graph a large part where there was an intensive work on 70th and 18th century books cataloging. And since it is running on every week, we can see how the quality, again in parentheses, changed over the time of the analysis. So back to the slides. There's one component I did not mention, that there's a web service which enables the librarians to run ad hoc analysis of a single record or multiple record. It can be built into the cataloging process. And here you can find the URLs, both of the source code, which is open source and freely usable, and the demo site of the Gantt catalog. Thanks a lot.
Great, thanks a lot, Péter, for this, for like briefly introducing this quite impressive, quite substantial work. As far as I know, it also covers quite a niche issue. So let's see. Of course, I have many questions to you, but let's see. Let's be democratic first. Let's see whether others have any questions, because luckily we still have a bit of a time for questions. So hands up and take your chances if you have any questions to Péter. Okay, then I will take my chances. Thanks, everyone. No, I see Umil's hand. Okay, just in time. Umil, go ahead. You're muted.
Okay. Looks like I just beat the buzzer there. Péter, I am fascinated by this. We talked about collaborating, I think 6 months ago or so, and then my job changed and everything essentially went to hell. But I've been thinking about doing something like this for a distributed collection like Europeana, right? How much effort do you think would be to make this tool flexible enough such that you could replace the mark fields with Europeana vocabulary And then I would love to this issue of completeness, coverage, volume, things like that, and where the authority fields would be even more diverse because not all authorities would be mark-based.
Yeah.
So,
I started with Europeana. So the whole project started when I lived in The Hague and worked together with Francesca, and we worked at Europeana, and I was a software developer there, and I ran into multiple problems within the Europeana data. So I had to write a lot of if statement. If something happens, then I should do something else. And that's what I started this research. And when I started, I thought that the software I write should be general enough and flexible and not concentrate on Europeana. So meantime, Europeana founded a group of experts called Data Quality Committee, and we have a weekly meeting discussing things like that. And yeah, I've created a specific tool for Europeana, but also there's a basic API I'm working on, and it is used by Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and another Ghent organization called MIMO. This is an audiovisual archive, and also it is used in the German Digital Library. So it is quite flexible. Let's discuss the details.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, maybe before the wrap up, just a last question to you, Péter. I think it also, your work also demonstrates very well how much there are many different actors involved in data curation in arts and humanities field. What would be your message, like based on your insights that the tool enabled so far? What would be your key message to librarians, but also to the Mark 21 developers? If you could put it like in a couple of sentences, or these are more complex messages that would exceed the.
Yeah, it's a simple know your data. So I learned in lots of organizations that data is not a centric piece of the organization. They think that, okay, data is there and we collecting data and managing data, but data is only for experts. But I guess it's not true. So you should take, so for example, one example in Europeana, there was a mandatory field called rights, and this should contain the status, licensing status of the not the metadata record, but the object describing this record. And only in a center, in a given point when we started working with the process, turned out that only 1/3 of the record doesn't have this field, which everybody thought that it's mandatory and it's clear. There were lots of discussions at conferences about rights in general and particular, but nobody checked whether rights are available for every record.
I think it's especially the know your data statement, as the data is not only for experts. Statements are beautiful concluding words for us today. So thanks a lot. Yeah, like Marta and I have some ideas about data management. Maybe we are less proficient in time management, but I hope that you enjoyed our session nonetheless. I was thinking about what to do with my own presentation, which we decided in the meantime not to have, but you know what? I'm just going to spoiler it away and we can put it on agenda for our next now closed working group meeting. It's closed in an open sense. So if you were new to the group and you found our work inspiring, of course, you are very welcome to join us, explore possibilities of collaboration. Marta, would you like to say anything in conclusion?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a great idea that we move the presentation. So there's a bit of a cliffhanger between now and the next meeting, that you are, of course, all welcome to attend. And well, please check out all the channels that we've mentioned. Take a look if there's something that is interesting to you. And as hopefully you could have seen from our great presenters and also from the first presentation that we gave, there's quite a diversity of interests. So if you see that just some aspects of it are interesting to you, you can also join us for some of the meetings. We always send out the agenda before. So there are some, let's say, steady members who come every time, but as Erzsébet mentioned, there are 46 of us. So some people just come to the meetings that are of particular interest of a specific topic to them.
Especially like I wouldn't say divide, but I will say divide. So one such potential divide is the scholar-facing topics versus the infrastructure-facing, support-facing topics. But we try our best to, first of all, balance, and second of all, harmonize the two. So yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Special thanks to Marta, being my wonderful coach and for giving insights about the data infrastructure in DARIAH Poland, to Femmy and Péter for the wonderful, inspiring fruits for the thought. Yes, see you, and thanks for...
Huge thanks to you, Erzsébet. And
oh yeah.
we are looking forward to the next meeting already.
Yes, indeed. So, bye everyone, and thanks for being with us.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thanks.